Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how the government, who are in charge of two highly complex threats to the nation, COVID and Brexit, were not even able to manage a remote meeting of MPs for a virtual briefing on the rollout of the vaccine. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, towards the start of the emergency in the UK, one of the things our country actually got right, and I thought, did well, was the virtual parliament. Debates and voting was able to proceed for a short period of time without needing lots of MPs to jam themselves into the tight corridors and rooms of the Palace of Westminster. Of course, the government didn't organise that. That was the Houses of Parliament staff. The government did, however, kick it in the balls. They stopped it being a long-term project because they forced MPs to vote against it. They didn't like it. They wanted MPs to jam themselves into those corridors. The intention was to force them all back into the debating chamber. Of course, the House of Commons would not allow that. So they ended up just acting out of spite in the end. As a result, some MPs caught COVID. Now, and they are, I think, having to rein that back a little bit now, because there are times when they need Parliament, and now that they've put in their tighter restrictions, that's going to be more difficult. So they may have to, they have had to rein back on that a little bit. But a remote meeting that was organised by the government, nothing to do with the Houses of Parliament, yesterday, was described in very colourful language by a number of MPs, one of which can't possibly repeat what they said. So I'll use more a diplomatic quote. Just an example of how utterly useless this government is. And I don't mean, you may imagine here a remote meeting, a few of them lost their connection, did it, Phil? That happens. You can't blame the government for that. It happened, for example, when Boris Johnson fell out of his own meeting with Conservative MPs early this year, because apparently the head of our government can't get a stable internet connection. Nothing as understandable, albeit annoying, as that, people dropping out. No, that's not what I mean. MPs were supposed to be being briefed about new COVID rules ahead of another press conference. I just add in here, by the way, new COVID rules, the new regulations, been a bit of a feature this year of the government producing legislation, using statutory instruments to create new criminal offences effectively, which is very naughty. But producing legislation, they say they have to do it so quickly because of the emergency situation. I mean, yeah, you did cause the emergency, but never mind. New emergency situation. So they produce this legislation, no real scrutiny, goes out. First time anyone gets to look at it, it's already basically law. With the latest regulations, because it wasn't properly checked, do you know what they did? They basically made schools illegal accidentally. Didn't mean to. Accidentally. They made it illegal for kids to attend school for education in tier 4 areas, which was not the intention. It was not the intention not to allow schools to carry out their work. So that's a bit of a cock-up. Just as well that's happened during the Christmas holidays. Could you imagine if that had have happened in the middle of term time? Regulations come out, schools get told kids can't come in the next day. You've got to tell them to go away until we've fixed this. Bloody cock-up. Anyway, never mind. Little aside there. So this government that has cocked up every aspect of COVID, Brexit and everything else they've done, everything they've touched this year, or indeed since they've been led by Boris Johnson, they couldn't even manage a remote meeting. Because do you know what you do? Remote meeting of MPs, that means you need to set up remote conference capable of doing the job. What have we got? We've got a number of officials. We've got 650 MPs. They all need to be able to log in. I've done things on that scale before, not set up myself, but been involved in things on that scale before. It's doable. They thought it adequate to use the Deputy Medical Officer's, Professor Van Tam's, personal Zoom to do so. Problem with this is it has a capacity of 100 participants. Now, as I say, along with the various officials, including Professor Jonathan Van Tam himself, who needed to be involved in the meeting, there are 650 MPs. A limit of 100 participants not really going to cover that, even given that there'll be some MPs who can't be asked to attend. Needless to say, the capacity was reached pretty quickly, and the vast majority of MPs were shut out of the meeting. Another MP described it as more about luck than planning. in regard her being actually able to get through. Another one said this is beyond dickheadery now. Who's dickhead? And lest we forget the challenges currently facing our country, every one of them caused or made worse by this incompetent bunch of misfit clowns. One, we have a record number of COVID cases because we entered our second lockdown too late and came out of it too early. Secondly, we are about to exceed the peak of hospital admissions that we experienced during the first wave, and we've only just entered the always difficult winter season for the NHS. That is Boris Johnson's Christmas present to the NHS. You're not getting a pay rise. You're going to pay your car parking charges that I said I would scrub, and also you're going to have a hell of a winter because on Christmas Day, that is when it is scheduled to exceed the highest number of hospital admissions of the entire emergency, and we've only just started winter. 3, we're now in a race against time to roll out the vaccinations in order to prevent 2021 being as damaged or worse as 2020, and the minister in charge of that operation couldn't even, never mind overseeing something as complex as this race against time vaccination programme, they couldn't even coordinate a meeting of MPs remotely to tell them about it. 4, we have thousands of lorries stuck in Kent. The government said, it's all right now, it's down to 170. Piss off, 170. It's like nearly 10,000. And the government's estimate is that it'll take about a week to clear them. Now, I will point out, they have a bit of a gift for making a mess of everything, and they also have a bit of a gift for when they say how long something will take to do. When you get to the end of that time, it's generally not done. So I'm going to guess it might take longer than a week, meaning that some of these lorry drivers, which I have to say I feel deeply for them, may be lucky to see their families for next Christmas, never mind this one. I mean, imagine that. We've got some of these poor beggars, they've got no chance of seeing their families at Christmas now. They would have planned to, they can't. Let's think about that for a start. The other thing let's think about is that I gather the German ambassador went to visit them. They've had people donating food to them, people rallying round to help them. No government minister's been down there. Boris Johnson hasn't been down there to visit them. He certainly hasn't made sure that they've got everything they need. I mean, that'd be better than a personal visit, quite frankly. You know, at least authorising whatever help they need. No. 5. If we do clear that backlog in a week's time, it will be just in time for it to start again, because that's when we're due to leave the customs union. Remember, deal or no deal, it looks like a deal now. It doesn't matter. That makes no difference. That doesn't have any... Well, all right, it might improve things a little bit, but it's still going to have checks, and that still means delays, and we've already shown that our plans are not ready for that yet. So we have a few challenges ahead of us, imminently. Frankly, the only good news was that a deal is basically done. So, you know, hopefully that can be announced. Hopefully it has been announced by the time this comes out. So we are facing certainly one of the worst crises in modern British history, and I would say definitely the worst one in peacetime. And every time the government do a thing, it just reminds us that we have the worst possible people in charge for it. Nothing even to do with political values or beliefs. They're just straight up useless. Now, the press conference itself, which was Matt Hancock's, Boris Johnson didn't front that one, Matt Hancock, the health secretary, and it was to announce that more areas are moving up. Tier 1 areas going to tier 2, there's a load of tier 2 going to tier 3, load of tier 3 going into tier 4. You know, just as before, the tier system is only ever an advancement system. You go up it, you don't really go down it, you go up it. And that's all there is to it. And just to try and explain the horror I feel when listening to this, consider 2 things. 1, there are independent experts that say the whole country should be in tier 4. It's that serious. The whole country should be in tier 4. This means that because it isn't, the situation is going to get worse on a national level, not better. On a regional level, the ones that have gone into the appropriate tier now may get better if there's enough compliance. But as a nation, it's not. It's going to get worse. And that's without even considering the possibility of a potentially more transmissible form of the virus spreading the love. Secondly, what's most appalling is the government know that some areas need to go into tighter restrictions. They know that there's a tier 1 area that needs to go into tier 2, that there are some tier 2 areas that need to go into tier 3 areas that need to go into tier 4. They know that. They know that that needs to happen. When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen tomorrow, today? No, it's going to happen on Boxing Day. Now, for those who don't live on this plague island, that means the day after Christmas Day. And yet, on Christmas Day, we're going to substantially relax the restrictions. So basically what they're saying is these areas are not responding to their current tier. We need to put them into a more restrictive tier. But before we do that, we're going to loosen the restrictions for a day. Then we'll put them into the tighter ones. Who does that? Who does that? You know the situation is bad. You know it's so bad you need to tighten the restrictions. But before they do that, you're going to loosen them. And beyond all this, I'd like to remind people of something. On September the 21st, the government's own scientific advisors told the government to go into a second national lockdown. We need to do it. Not just we think we should do it, we need to do this, they said. If you do this now, they said, it will take 2 weeks to get it under control, and then test and trace will be able to cope again. Test and trace has not been able to cope for the last few months. It has always been too high. Now, if they'd have done that, yes, we'd still, I'm not saying it would have gone away, of course it wouldn't have done. We'd still have to observe COVID secure measures, but we wouldn't have needed these severe restrictions that we now need. The rate of new infections would be nowhere near as high as it is now. There would have been no need to tell so many businesses to close at the most lucrative time of year. We'd also have much fewer hospital admissions, so fewer resulting deaths. So on both a health and economic point of view, that one decision caused the damage that we are now seeing. Unfortunately, people have short-term memories and too few will remember all of that and piece it all together for the larger picture. And just to finish, the press conference, which, as I say, Matt Hancock ended, he said he's confident that we'll be back to normal by 2022. Now, we come back to the notion of this being a government who consistently fail to meet their own deadlines. I suspect we will not. I have some confidence that we'll be in a better place come 2022, but I have confidence for that only because I have faith that scientists and medics will develop better quality tests and better systems for administering the vaccines and the tests in that time frame. Left to the government, we'd be stuck with this for the rest of our lives. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.